to start us off, Matt, Lisa, welcome to the There's More Where That Came From podcast. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves, where you're from, pimp yourselves out a little bit.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Lisa Hunter, and this is my husband, Matt Hunter. And gosh, we actually just celebrated 22 years of marriage, which is crazy. I think in today's world, it's like a huge milestone, I would say. And we are from Chino, California, and we have 2 kids. Avery is 16. She's a junior in high school, cheerleader. And Cole is 19. He's a sophomore at Grand Canyon University. So that's us in a nutshell.
I love it. And you guys, we're going to be diving into, you say that's us in a nutshell, but I feel like there's so much more around that, obviously.
Yeah.
I want to talk to 22 years you guys have been married. You guys have known each other basically your whole lives. How did you guys meet?
So we met in high school. Lisa was on, at the time it was called pageantry or color guard. I was in the band. Yeah, a lot of people look at me, big, strong athlete. They assume I played football. I did not. I was in the drum line. So, by the way, my son played football, and I told him the real athletes come out at halftime when the band comes out and plays, right? And so we have a good laugh over it. But yeah, I was in the drum line. I noticed Lisa when she ran by me a couple times, throwing her flag, and I said, "Ooh, she's very cute, and she has a nice booty." That was my thing. So. I made a couple moves. I still remember it was a trip to Disneyland. I asked her if she would want to sit with me on the bus, and she said, yeah. And
that was a big move.
I remember I reached my hand over and put on her leg, and the rest is history, Adrianne. Yeah, it was that smooth.
They let you guys sit together on the buses. They wouldn't even let girls and guys. You guys are the reason why we can't sit together on the buses anymore.
Yeah, Adrianne, don't tell my mom. But yeah, there were hotel rooms, and we had to stay in hotel rooms. So Lisa might have frequented, came by and said hi to me in my hotel room, or I might have said hi to her in her hotel room.
No, back then we were allowed to go in.
But we were able to go
if the door was open.
If the door was open, right? It's a totally different world nowadays. That was.
You make it sound like we were shacking up.
We were shacking up. Well, we were shacking. Maybe. Don't tell anybody that though.
High school was different back then.
And that was at least that was 30 years ago.
Yeah, crazy.
That was 30 years ago.
Seem that it could be like it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
When people say 30 years ago, I instantly think that's 1970. 30 years ago is 1970.
Yeah. And that was 1994 or somewhere around there, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but it was.
Oh, I just saw it was like a meme that said the Elf is celebrating its 20-year anniversary.
Serious?
Wow. Right?
Thought maybe 5 years or something. But we kind of missed the boat with that with our kids a little bit. So yeah, time just flies. That's the thing. By so fast.
So you guys were high school sweethearts. Take us through, lead us up to getting married, and what did you guys do? Tell us a little bit about your professional and personal background leading up to getting married and having kids.
Sure. So as we were younger, and I think this was very common, many years ago, was you graduated high school, did your college thing, and you got married pretty early, and you got a house early. So I remember that was our goals. We just want to get married and we could start our lives together. So we got married, and I think I was 23. At least you might have been 22. But leading up to that, I was working odd jobs, as a bartender, going to school. I was looking to get a major in history. I was going to go into teaching. Lisa was actually kind of the breadwinner, Adrianne. She worked at Mercury Insurance full time and was crushing it, bringing home the bacon. And I was going to school. So at least maybe talk a little bit about your time and career there.
Yeah, I do remember even on our honeymoon, Matt was studying because he was still in school. That's how young we were. And then, when all the wedding stuff, was over, about a year or 2 later, he graduated. And then he kind of took off on his career. But yeah, during that time, I was always going to be a working mom. That was the plan. We had just, do you want me to fast forward that far?
Yeah. I think
I would. Yeah. I was pregnant with Cole, and I knew, okay, after I have him, I'm going to put him in daycare, and we just bought a brand new house. And so there wasn't an option. Our moms were working moms. It wasn't grandma's going to watch the new baby. And so I was just going to be a working mom. And it wasn't until honestly Cole was born and it was like, holy crap, like I cannot put my baby in daycare. Like, and it wasn't just me, it was Matt. Matt was like 100%, that is not happening. You are staying home. What do we need to do to change our lives so that we can make that possible? And that meant like a huge life change at the time. It meant selling this home that we thought we loved and we were going to stay in for a long time, moving a little bit away from our family, about an hour away. And yeah, coming with sacrifices. So my plan was to be a working mom, promote within, since I didn't have a college degree, promote. I was a hardworking, I liked goals. I can do this. And then everything changed, you know, when I had Cole. And yeah, luckily we were on the same page and decided that I was gonna be a stay-at-home mom, which was all new to me.
What does that conversation look like? I feel like a lot of people that are listening, if they're my friends, which they better be listening, they are in that stage where they're having to make, like, they're having kids or they have jobs. And, you know, I think it's really interesting that you were like, okay, if we don't want to have him in daycare, like, what does that conversation look like when you like sit down and decide we've got to change our lives? Like, we got to figure this out.
Sure. So obviously, you know, sacrifices had to have been made. I was raised in a very traditional family. My father worked, my mom stayed at home to raise me and my brothers. So I wanted to emulate that, have that available for our kids as well. And it just made life more calm, it felt like to me. Like we were able to do it at the time, but we didn't have a family member that our kids could go to and that help out with just the daycare stuff. So we knew it was inevitable, like it was either this or that. And there was one day we pulled out the phone book and we were literally looking for like daycare services. Like we don't even know what to do. Like, how do you interview a daycare place? Like, where would we go? What would we do? And there were a little bit of tears. And so I said, you know, well, look, I've got this job. I'm making decent money now. Like if we sold this home, you know, we could, you know, even go rent an apartment somewhere. Like we could downsize a bit, reduce our expenses, and just figure it out. And
at least for a couple of years.
Yeah, and,
plan, right?
yeah, figure it out. Like that was for a few years until the kids get old enough, and then we can go back into working, you know, as a working mom, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that didn't happen. Luckily enough, we were able to make the sacrifices, and we moved. You know, we moved to local places in Southern California that reduced our expenses, but it was far away from the family. And as I continued to promote with my career, we were able to have those resources back where we could then move back down and get closer to the family. So it was a quick season of life, but it was something that we look back on now, we wouldn't change a thing.
Oh, I love that. So when Cole was born and Avery just soon after, you're starting to grow in your career. Why don't you talk a little bit about what that career was? And, you know, you went from graduating to like straight up corporate life, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I had graduated from college. I was going to go into teaching. I actually got my degree in history. My mom was a teacher. My brother was a teacher. And I just felt like that's the pathway. You know, it's a good job. They make good money here in California. I was thinking, oh, that's going to be nice. I get the summers off. And but at the time, trying to get a teaching job was difficult. It was very impacted. Like it wasn't just go out, sign me up and get a teaching job. So I was like, well, what do I do now? You know? And I knew freight and logistics and actually shipping. I worked the freight docks. I loaded trucks. And I said, well, I see those guys like in sales and they drive around in like company cars, a Ford Taurus with a company credit card. I want that job. That's cool. I could take clients out to lunch and, you know, drive around in my cool car. Plus I get a company car. So I was like, that's what I want to do. So I applied actually for a company my father worked at. He did not know that I was applying for the sales job and I ended up getting it. And that's where I started my career in freight and logistics. And I started as a local, what they call a local field rep. So I was literally a door knocker. I would literally knock on doors from business to business in industrial areas to solicit our services. I was young. I was 25 years old. And as I do now, at that time, I still had a very good way with people. I could just communicate. I could talk to people. I could ask questions. And I enjoyed those conversations and providing value. So as I kind of got my bearings there with Yellow at the time, I started, you know, feeling confident. I was recruited by another company in a different location and came on board as a local field rep, but then promoted to a district sales manager, started managing a team of about 6 sales reps. And I continued to excel with that company. I was a high caliber club earner almost nearly every year. We were winning trips to Hawaii. We won a trip to Antigua, great bonus money. Like I was enjoying it. Like it was a great job for me. and lots of flexibility. But I felt like, okay, at some point in time, I've kind of reached my cap. Meanwhile, like, don't discount what Lisa was doing. Lisa was like keeping it held down at home. Everything was good. I loved it because I knew what I was coming home to. The kids were taken care of. The house was clean. Everything was felt so in line. I knew my role. She knew her role. We were a great team. And I had an opportunity come my way to come on board as a consultant with a company. And so I started consulting with this company. And then I eventually left my current provider, the provider I was with at the time. And I came on board with the new company as a partner in this business. And so that was about in my early 30s. I think I was actually like 29 or 30 when this happened. And so for me, I signed a deal to where I could then have ownership in this company and earn percentage throughout my career working for them. And eventually we would hopefully be this payday of selling the business and being able to participate in something like that. So that was about a 15-year process. And just this last January, we sold that business and I participated with and got a nice settlement payout. And as I saw that part of my life coming, like the business was changing, I started looking at other career paths and other avenues. And so that's something I'm excited to share with you a little bit about here now today is kind of what am I doing and where's my new passion at, right? Because my passion was in freight and logistics and it was in sales and communicating with people, but it's a different new passion.
I can't believe that age 29 and 30, you were brought in to be like, that's incredible. How did you remain humble during that period of time? Because like you're in Southern California, like, there's so many things to do. I think that like, I don't know, my personal experience from when I lived in LA, it felt like Never Land. Like everybody's like 40, 50 some years old and they're still trying to figure it out. To kind of feel like you've had it figured out in your career at age 30, that's incredible.
Yeah, so let me speak to that real quick too. So even with that company that we just sold, so I started as a sales leadership, and then it was vice president of sales, and it was executive vice president, then eventually president role. So the owner and myself, he was taking more of a step back, and I was taking a head and a lead in the company, right? So that was kind of where I started to grow. But I think a lot of that just comes too with time and age. Like they always say, like when you gain some age, you gain wisdom. And I really do believe in that. Like I would see things more clearly. I would be able to process things more slowly and to be able to make good decisions at a higher level.
But I do remember those early days of him taking on that big position in the company. And like you said, gosh, he was young, but I remember it was like the grind.
It was a
like,
grind.
And people may, maybe if they knew us, they didn't know us then and they saw Matt years and years later, like, oh, he's got a flexible schedule. Oh, this company, is the way it is. But that is because of those early years. I mean, 6 a.m. he was out the door. Like he worked his butt off and changing so many things down there and making it run more efficiently and bringing the right people into the business. And so people kind of forget, like, that was the grind. That was the grind that he was doing. And, like you were talking about the other day, you're like, I just don't have that grind anymore. I'm like, yeah, you were like 15 years younger. Like seasons are different. Life is different.
A couple comments on that is that fire in the belly to get after what I was doing. It's a different perspective now. Like that's not where my passion's at right now. And I was listening to a podcast the other day that talked about looking into the future. They say, well, stay in the present. Well, that's great and all, but if you're not looking into the future, like what are you excited about? Like what's driving you? So right now I do look into the future. I look at what we have ahead of ourselves, but I still want to stay present for today for sure. But going back to what Lisa said, if I look back and somebody asks like, hey, you had a very successful exit and you did very well with the company and the company did well. It had a lot of great people. The culture was good. Like, what was it? The one greatest thing I think I'd point to is getting the right people. Like we had a great team and I would attribute to everything to a lot of the team members we had from the executive leadership down to, mid-level management, our frontline employees, our sales teams. And we had a company culture we put a lot of attention to really drive.
And I think Matt was really good at, like I said, putting people in the right positions and also showing them appreciation and letting them do their thing and not like crazy micromanaging them. Just from what I can see from like the outside looking, and I wasn't there obviously, but I think he did that very well. And that's what made the culture and the people like they didn't have a turnover rate. Like the employees were there and they were committed, but that also started not just from Matt, but the owner.
Yeah.
You know, the owner treated Matt so well, and it was a trickle down effect.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what point in this timeline did you guys start to become interested in real estate?
Right. So Adrian, it's a funny, you asked that. So back in 2015, so it's 2023, right? So 8 years ago, I was doing well in the corporate life, and I'd find bonus money and some extra reserves, and I looked around and said, well, I really don't have much investment in anything. I wasn't really like a stock guy, a 401k guy. Yeah, we had some money in 401k, things like that. And I said, you know what? I look back and I said, I look around, and it seems like all these responsible people that have done well investing just own real estate. Like, Lise, we should just go buy a house and just rent it to somebody. Like, that seems like, if anything, that would be a smart thing to do. Why? I don't know, but like that's what we see successful people doing, and there's probably good things to do. So we're all excited. We did a grown-up thing. We bought our first what we call long-term rental property in Lake Havasu City. And we were so excited for it. We're like, hey, we could buy it for this amount. Here's our mortgage. Literally, our mortgage was like $850, and the rent on it was like, I don't know, $1,100. We're like, wow, we can make a few $100s a month on this, and it's a good investment. It'll have appreciation. Unbeknownst to us at the time, really what that even meant. We're like, but that just seems like a really good idea. And so we bought our first one in 2015, and then quickly after that, we bought another one, like these long-term properties. I probably skipped one of the parts that's pretty important to this whole thing too, Adrian. But my parents owned a vacation home in Lake Havasu. That's why we'd always go there vacationing. So we actually bought that property from my parents first. And I sometimes just forget about that because I always like the family vacation home. So we bought that from them first, but that was like our vacation home for us and the family, right? So I didn't recognize it at the time as a like investment. I just recognized it as a vacation home for us. So around 2015, 2016, we started our investment in real estate. And I'm going to let Lisa share a little bit about that process. From there, we had the two long terms, and then we had our Canterbury Estates house.
Yeah. So
fast forward to COVID, like how did we get into this Airbnb short-term rental game?
Yeah. So like Matt said, we had the two long-term rentals, which they were easy because we had a property manager, and it was just like a set it and forget it. Honestly, like you're not really doing a lot. You're maybe doing repairs and stuff like that. We had really good tenants that would stay for a year or 2 years, and it was pretty easy. You weren't making a lot of money, but at least it was covering a mortgage. And like you said, you have an investment in something, and you're gaining appreciation, hopefully, with the market. So fast forward 2020, and we spent a lot of time out in Havasu. For us, obviously, California was very locked down. And so we can drive 4 hours to Havasu, and it was like, oh my gosh, it feels so normal here. Like you don't see people wearing masks, and it just felt more community-like. And a lot of Californians were doing that. And so we started getting, hey, would you want to, we know you guys have a lake house. We're dying to go out there. Would you want to rent it out? And so that's kind of how it started. And then Matt was like, I could throw this thing on Airbnb when we're not there, because Matt was still working and stuff, when we're not there, and we can rent it out to people and make money. And so we started doing that. And then we kept getting like bookings and people from other states. And
yeah, so that started it. And the funny thing is like we got all excited. We're like, dude, we're making how much on this booking? Like people are coming to stay here at our house. Like then you kind of get weird, like, but it's my house. Like, but we totally got over that really quickly. And but some funny things started happening, Adrian. We started just learning. Like we had no idea what we're even doing.
Yeah.
We didn't even know about like really how Airbnb and short-term rental works. What are the laws? What are the requirements? So we're going to get to that here shortly. But you did. We just didn't know that.
Oh.
I
forgot about that.
Did. We just didn't even know that, right? We're just breaking the laws, man. It's the wild, wild west in Havasu.
Right.
So we were in a gated community. It was a very nice, well-to-do community. Like it's got, every home looks really nice, has to be manicured, kept a certain way. But here, all these people rolling in, and you get a rough crowd sometimes with Airbnb. Like you get randos coming in, and they started watching the house. All of a sudden, letters are landing in our mailbox here, and they, of course, Lisa doesn't check the mail all the time, so this thing stacked up for like 2 weeks. Literally, there's a 2-week stack. I pulled this letter out, and I'm like, Lisa, this was for like last month, and we just got a notice that we are violating this CC&R rule that we can't short-term rent our house. So like just ignore that, throw it in the trash, no big deal, right? And then you start getting another one, and they're like, oh, okay, well, what does this really mean? And they're like, it's $500 a transaction, and this and that. And like now we've got these like $3,000 worth of fines with the HOA. So I took some action. I called up and let them know what we're doing. Like, well, sir, you can't do that. I'm like, well, where does it say that? You know? So they sent me the rules. I read it. I found the rule specific. I said, look, I'm sorry. Maybe a slap on the wrist here. Can we just stop doing it? And we ended up settling on a smaller fee. Long story short is, um, I said, okay, lesson number one, right? Do your research. So
Yeah.
we identified like, okay, we can't do that here. But like as this was transitioning and happening, Lisa says, I think I could retire out here. Like, and I think it was just like in the moment, January was very beautiful out there. I'm like, really? Like, let me call our real estate agent and just see like what houses are on the market. You know, this is what I want. I want this, this, and this. And so I called our agent. They're like, well, there's really not much on the market right now. However, there's one house that looks very cool, and it kind of checks a lot of the boxes you want. Like we wanted a view of the lake. We wanted, you know, this big pocket door off the back. We wanted a pool, RV garage. Like we wanted all the things for housing. And so we immediately drove out there, fell in love with the property right away in the sticks. I remember we walked up the stairs to the casita. We turned around and both looked at the lake. We were like, oh my gosh, like our jaws just dropped. And we're like, wow, how can we pull this off? Like, how could we get this home, sell our old one? So I started running numbers. I'm like, well, Lise, let's go back to what we did with Airbnb. Like, if we Airbnb this home, like, and from my research, I think we could at least more than cover our mortgage, right? I think we can cover the cost of this home and it'll be ours. Great. Like we weren't thinking about this from a business perspective at all at the time. We're just thinking, okay, we could secure the house, offset cost, still a good investment, great place for us to come with the family. And then we locked it up quickly, right?
Yeah, but you didn't mention that the house was literally under construction.
Yeah.
And so we were able to meet with the builder. He was a smaller builder in town. And we were like, look, we love this house. But he had shown like the things he had picked out for the house. And we're like, it's not our favorite. So if we buy this house, and again, it was like just like the right time in the market because there really wasn't anybody else looking at this house that didn't have any other offers. If we buy this house, like we love it, but we want to make it our own. And he was 100% supportive of that. And that's where we were able to kind of get into the design aspect of it and the design world. And again, we knew that the sell of the business was in the future. Right. We were trying to set ourselves up, but he couldn't really talk about that. In all honesty, it was a very stressful 2-year process that he really couldn't talk about. Right. But we kind of knew, him and I, that we're planning for our future. We're not going to be like, okay, it's done, the sale, like we cannot retire. Like, what are we going to do? Like, what is our plan here? We need to have kind of something set in motion. This house could be a place where, number one, our family can come and vacation because we love to come here. It could store a boat. We can rent it when we're not using it to help offset the cost. We are investing in something. And then maybe one day we would retire there. Like all these things kind of added up, you know, and again, not really knowing the dive that we were going to take into the short-term rental world.
Right,
like,
right.
But no, yeah.
Well, parallel to all this, though, too, Adrian, and I think it sometimes gets lost because of such a small deal, was we were buying a cabin in our local mountains area. We're like, you know, again, it was like, okay, cool. We can have this family cabin. We can go to the mountains. Like, we're not even snow people. We never really go to the mountains. We don't snowboard. We don't ski. You know, Lisa doesn't like the snow. Like, you throw bundles up at 60 degrees out here in California. Like, what you going to snow. So,
but I think the thing that excited us about that property, because now they're probably like, what are you talking about? So we bought the lake house, or sold the first lake house. We had our 2 long-term rentals, and now we're buying and building this bigger home that we're going to do more of a luxury short-term rental vacation home for others and for our family. And then we found Deep Creek.
It was kind of like actually parallel.
It was the same time, which was crazy. But I think what intrigued us about that was it was only an hour away from our house. And we were going to completely renovate it. We were so excited to renovate a space and do it how we wanted to do it.
Okay. Okay. So I have a question. You had just kind of mentioned about how you're like checking these boxes as to like why you wanted to invest in Vista Lago. Is that something that you go through with your like consulting clients, or like during that course? Do you feel like everyone should go through those same like boxes, or what do you think are some really great pre-real estate investing questions you should ask yourself?
Well, I think it's very true is location, location, location. So what does location mean? Well, I mean, I'm not talking just Havasu City location or, Scottsdale. Yes, those are two premier areas, but that's very important. But the location of the property as it correlates to, like, is there a view? Is there something special this property has to offer? Like these little amenities, if you're looking at a property as a short-term rental property. And by short-term rental, just so your listeners here and they know, so that's anything less than 30 days, typically vacationers, Airbnb, people that come and go. So you're trying to curate and create these special stays. So you got to make sure you have the canvas available to create that. So when you are looking for a property, you do want to start with, okay, what's the location? What does it have to offer? What are some of the amenities that'll be different than most houses out there? Views, lake views or views of the mountains are huge. That is a huge seller. So you want to find something with views. Now, does it have to have a view? No, but you want to make sure it has some other type of amenity. So, but yeah, checking those boxes, right? To see if that property is something that would provide that experience. But at the same time, you also have to look, what's the cost? And then, there are websites like AirDNA, STR Insights, where you can run an analysis to say, what will this forecast to perform? Like, how much revenue will this property earn over time based upon current market data?
But also something that I think is helpful because Matt and I actually did a class that you can purchase online, and we always think like if we would have had that knowledge prior to jumping into this, that would have been so helpful to us. Just like we were getting fines on that original property that we were short-term renting, if we would have done our research, which we do go over and talk about, like, what do you need to do? Do your research before you're even going to buy the property. Because the worst thing is that someone, is like buys a house and the neighbor or the agent says, oh, you can short-term rent that. That'd be great. And then they can't. Like that would be devastating if that was their plan. So yeah, I would highly suggest that if it's something you're thinking about at all, is to take our masterclass, because it just goes like the basics of answering all the basic questions. And you may leave thinking, I really want to get into that. Like, it sounds intriguing. I love everything they said, or I don't think that's for me. Maybe we just saved you a lot of time and a lot of money.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
Okay, so let's move along to Deep Creek. So you guys were like, on this project, we want to be renovators. What inspired that? Were you guys like watching too much like Joanna and Chip? And
Dude,
you're like, we can do this.
oh, for sure. We loved Chip and Joanna and just watching these shows. I think it even started years ago. There was a show called Trading Places. It was like this neighborhood where, you swap these homes and you come back and like there was
probably like in the 2000s.
that was years
I
ago.
remember it. Yeah.
Time ago.
No,
Yeah,
it was a long
that was a long
ago.
time ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you come and see these renovations, and we just love seeing like these before and afters. Like before and afters were great, and we're like always wish like, man, we would love to do that. And Lisa does a great job with her design and even our current home, but we loved taking these houses and totally changing them and then turning them back into something that wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you guys get going into Deep Creek, and then at this point, you have how many properties? 3, 2?
So at this point, we had 2 long-term rentals. And then we had 2 short-term rentals. So we have a total of 4 properties. And so we were at Deep Creek. That was our mountain cabin. And we noticed we got word the neighbor was moving out of this cabin next door. So again, I'm going and talking to people and I'm like, hey, Nate, what's going on? I'm Matt. They're like, what? Like, people in the mountains don't talk to each other. It's very quiet. You don't know your neighbors. It's just kind of weird.
But Matt, he's like the mayor. Anywhere he goes, he will talk to a stranger. He will shake your hand. But all those networking, I'm not like that. I mean, I wish I was, but I look back and I'm like, because he put himself out there and connected with people, we met that person, and then this happened, and then this happened. So it's kind of cool sometimes to connect the dots to see, like, networking is so, I know you know that, Adrianne, like networking is so important. Just like we tell Cole in college, like he just got a newer job at a really fancy golf course, golf club. And we're like, it's not always about, it's about who you know, or who you meet, and can create these future opportunities. But yeah.
So I saw the neighbor was like, looks like they're getting ready to move out or they're doing something. Hey, are you guys moving out? They're like, yeah, we bought a house over on the other side. We're getting ready to get this one going and get it sold. I said, we would be interested, but there's a question I have for you. Is the inside like does it have the not what's called a knotty pine ceiling? And he said, yeah, it's got the knotty pine ceiling. By that, it's all those wood boards in the ceiling. And he says it's all vaulted through the entire cabin from front to back, and even in the bedrooms. I'm like, hey, can my wife and I just peek in and take a look? He's like, sure. So we came over and we're like, oh, yeah. I mean, we took our time. She's like, I don't know, man. I said, this thing's got a canvas that'll be beautiful. And plus, we were able to get a kind of a trailer out of the front yard and build stuff. And like that'll help improve Deep Creek as well. So we walked it, and we took them out on the patio and said, hey, we're very interested in buying this property. Like if you are ready to sell, like we would love to just make a deal and just take it to escrow. We don't need a real estate agent, so it saves them money, it saves us money. Like it just made all the sense in the world. And sure enough, we were able to get a deal. We locked it up and bought it.
Oh my gosh, the
Yeah,
chances.
so that was exciting. So that's our third short-term rental property we brought into our portfolio.
Okay, so at what point in this timeline so far were you guys like, we're gonna make a business out of our portfolio, or were you still just like, you had no idea yet?
Well, it was hand in hand. It was kind of coming along together because now I'm doing more research, right? I started listening to podcasts. I started just running numbers. I took a step back and said, okay, based upon my professional career of like running a business, a P&L, like if I take that same approach, bring that over here and figure out, okay, what are my costs? What are my operational costs? My overhead expenses. What are my forecasted revenues? Like, is there profit to be made here? And sure enough, there was. And it's a very good profit over beyond just covering your expenses and mortgage and paying bills. There was net profit left, and so that became very exciting. So now I'm starting to do more research and watching others on whether it's Instagram or podcast, and they were talking about the business model, and I became very intrigued because I love real estate. Lisa's doing her design. I'm thinking we're the perfect team to do this. We have some financial means to do it because the sale of the business is coming, so I knew that was coming, right? So I'm thinking we've got some runway here. Like we can continue going after this, and sure enough, we did.
I love that. Well, and I think that's a great place to just touch on, Lisa, in all of this. So you start building Vista Lago and you're making design decisions. And obviously you have your home that you've decorated and, have redone there. And then now you're adding on the Deep Creek projects. At what point, or who was it in this that was like, Lisa, you should like keep doing this. Like, you're really good. This is more than just a task that you have to do. Like, you're actually doing design work. When did this all come about?
I think that was just kind of over the years and over the process of me posting things on Instagram. Like I'd get people, hey, can you help me, pick out a comforter for my bedroom? Or can you help me decorate my living room? So I would get those, but I never really took it very seriously. I was so focused on what we were doing and all the renovating and shopping and decorating and everything. But it wasn't, I don't know. When do you think it was?
I would say like more seriously within the last year.
Yeah.
Like we sat down and said, we keep getting asked about design. Can you do this? Can you do that? Or you just found confidence as well because, likes and tags and comments on Instagram. So it's like, we kind of were like, wait a minute, we're doing this. You got this eye for design. Like we do it together as a team. Like Lisa's very good with the decor and the finishes and all stuff. And I feel like I've got a good idea just from a high level design and layout and colors and stuff. So we started putting things together.
But I guess when I think back, it really was Deep Creek and Vista Lago because guests would stay there and they would comment that they liked the decor.
Yeah.
And you're like patting yourself on the back. Like, I know, I did it myself.
Sorry, Lisa's getting a little
you're good.
off there.
You're good.
And
no,
oh my gosh, sorry. It's like a coughing attack.
No, you're fine. And so kind of leading into that, you start having guests who are messaging you and like, I love the design, I love the decor. What, like, obviously, you have really great taste in that, but was there a first moment where someone was like, can you do this for me?
I think it was when you helped me, Adrianne, and you, we put it out on a blog and kind of opened it up like, hey, if there's anybody that needs design assistance, let us know. And that's really kind of when it started. I got a local job where a girl she wanted her living room and dining room kind of revamped. And so we had a Google Doc for her to fill out, kind of field it, get some information. And then I went over, took pictures, measurements, did the shopping for her, and then put it all together. And then that allowed me to have like before and afters. And that was actually a pretty easy way because it was like no construction, no major furniture. It was really just filling in. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. You know, they have the furniture, they maybe it's not to scale, or they don't know how to pick a right rug, or they don't know how to layer with textures and pillows and decor objects and greenery and things like that. And so I always think like you can have all the furniture and things in place, but it doesn't feel homey. And so bringing in those other pieces really make it feel homey. And that's exactly what this client said. She said she really made my house feel like a home. And I was like, oh, okay, perfect. That's exactly what we want to do, you know, incorporating family pictures and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where it started. Adrianne, you were a huge part of like pushing me, you know, like, you got this, girl, I support you, pushing me and helping me just with the confidence to move forward in that. So that's kind of how it started. Yeah.
Okay, if you had to predict a 2024 design, like a home design trend or tip, what do you like, what's coming? Like, what are you loving? And what do you think everyone should either like a little piece they can do in their house themselves or something to think about?
I do think that bold colors are kind of coming back.
Grays are out.
Grays are out.
Grays are out.
Grays are out,
And
and you're
here's our
actually,
house all painted in gray. So
I
yeah,
know.
go back
That's
and
it's like you can't keep up. You can't keep up. And that's the other thing is like, it's easy to look on Instagram and to see everyone's home so perfect, especially I follow so many home accounts. And it's like, it's hard to keep up with that. And it's not always realistic to stay on top of the trends. Like, it's expensive, you know? So I always say like things are going to come back around. So grays are definitely going out. You're even seeing brown tones come back in, which I'm like, oh, I don't love browns, but those are coming back.
I think more like earthy tones and you know, elements are
Mhm.
making a huge trend for
Mhm.
you know, especially in your designs.
Yeah.
And I'm going to jump in real quick, Adrianne, too. And I think our experience really lies, yes, on home design and interior, but I think where we excelled really much, you know, a lot at is on the short-term rental side, right? Because you're designing an experience,
Yeah.
not just a home to stay in. And I've heard
Right.
this before. It's like, hey, when it comes to this, you're not designing for you. As much as we want to design for us to stay there, like you're designing for somebody else. And you're designing an experience with a stay that's bold and exciting, that's
Right.
different than the place they live at. So that's why they want to pick your property, right? So there's some nuggets, right? That's a huge nugget. Like if you're getting into this, like it's all about design and pictures and what somebody sees on the other side of the screen when they're looking at your property.
Okay, so that's my next question. And I know you guys probably cover this in your course, but if you can give us some inside scoop, what are like those, like when you're thinking about your property and you know you're designing it for someone else, are there any like key pieces or little tips and tricks that you guys have implemented in all of your properties while keeping the guest in mind?
Sure, we always try to keep the brand feeling consistent from home to home, right? With certain color choices. But the one thing we found that works very well is like a mural or a selfie wall. Like, what will be a special moment in this property where people will picture and share, and they'll like and tag and kind of like do marketing and advertising for you, right? To create that special moment. So that's one thing that we try to incorporate, you know, in the last two properties that's been successful for us. But also just the amenities and the aesthetics, right?
Mhm. And one other huge thing is just the experience that people are getting. From the time they walk in the door, it is a clean property. It's like the most perfect hotel you've ever seen. The refrigerator is cleaned out, it is sparkly, nothing is left in there. There's a welcome gift from us. There's a guest book that people can sign and look back on other guests that have stayed there. We use like a certain scent at our property. So it's all about just that, like the whole experience.
Yeah. Hitting him with the five senses.
Ooh,
Yes, the five senses.
I love that tip. That's a good tip. I do. And I've told you guys this before. I am an Airbnb girl. Like I love staying in an Airbnb. And after like experiencing your guys' Airbnb, I stayed at one in Scottsdale back in April, and it was like, it was nice. I had like a pool, all of those things, but it felt like someone typed into Facebook Marketplace, I need a kitchen table. And they got the best kitchen table they could find. And then I need a couch, and they found the best couch they could find, and nothing went together. And I didn't realize like how big of like, I was grateful for the place, but it did make a difference to me. I was like, I don't know if I would stay here again. It's nice, but it's not aesthetically pleasing as I would like. And it does make a big difference.
Exactly. No, it absolutely does. Yeah.
From the beds to the linens to what they smell, what they feel, what they hear. Like, it's so important, you know, and Airbnb has become, you know, what I call Airbnb, but the short-term rental game has become very competitive out there. There's a lot of players that have got into it, and there's a lot that are doing well, and there's some that struggle. But to stay competitive, you've got to be on top of your game. And these are things we've learned over the years. And they haven't been like tough learning lessons, but we watched and learned. Like, we've invested in money in there. A lot of the profit we make off the properties right now, we're not putting in our pocket. We're putting it back into the property to do new things, to create a new experience, to stay ahead of the market.
Do you guys have any exciting projects coming down the pipeline for 2024 and the remainder of 2023?
Yes, and yeah, for sure. So, Adrian, we didn't mention though, so we added the clubhouse, right? So the portfolio has grown, right? So we added another property, the clubhouse. So we had 4 short-term rental properties, you know, and then we this past year though, we made some moves to sell a few of the properties, 1031 them. So we got rid of the long terms. We're pushing all into the short-term game because we see so much more opportunity there. And that's kind of where we feel our strength is. So, but in 2024, we just secured another property in Havasu. It's even a larger property. And we saw it was actually on Airbnb. It just struggled to perform. It wasn't managed well. The design wasn't great. And we had some 1031 money that we had to do something with. So we parked it there. And while we were going through that process, we really didn't talk about design, like what do we envision for the space. But I remember once we locked it up, like Lisa she did not like the house. We walked it. She's like, absolutely not. This place sucks. And I'm like, I think this place can be great. And I was trying to tell her about this and tell her about that. And then we took some steps back from it and started like talking about design and experience. So one of the cool things, this is a big property, double lot, big pool, you know, 7, 8 bedrooms, room to spread out with the guest house. But we are looking to add a pickleball court at this property and create it like a very large family reunion, large group gathering, corporate event property with a pickleball court. And this area is going to set us aside. So that's one of the huge, cool projects we're super excited about. You can talk a little about the design choice, Lisa.
Yeah, it's in the demo stage right now. And so that's always good when we knew we were going to demo the thing out. Besides, we didn't demo out the kitchen because it was decent and we're trying to save some money. Is when everything is demoed out, it's like it gives you these fresh eyes because everything is cleared out. We got rid of they left all their furniture and everything. So we got rid of all that and then demoed out what we're not going to be using. And so Matt was able to go walk the property and videotape for me, but that really like gives you a clean slate to kind of see, okay, what do we want to do with this? What are we feeling? What is the vibe here? We kind of came up with, Matt says he made it up, but I don't know. The design style would be like a desert coastal. So we're going to actually try to incorporate more color, which if you know us, our Vista Lago property is very neutral, very black and white. We love that look, but we're going to try to be a little bit different with tile selections. And it's going to be I'm actually really excited about it. Like, honestly, like Matt said at first, I was like, I didn't like the layout. I didn't like how things flowed, but the way that we're able to change things, I'm like, okay, we're going to make it work so much better. And I'm actually really, really excited about the design of this one because it's a little bit out of our box, a little bit different, more color. I'm hoping to use we use some wallpaper in the clubhouse, but it was pretty muted. So, hopefully we can do more wallpaper.
Yeah, a little more bold, a little more of an experience. So when there's somebody scrolling, they see, yeah, it's a beautiful house, nice house, but there's more of an experience in those pictures, whether it's the colors, the pops, the amenities. So it's going to be a very interesting experience.
Yeah, and the one thing Yeah, the one thing I think is good when you're looking at a short-term rental property, and if it does hold a lot of people and you're sleeping on people, it has to have ample parking. We're looking at the neighbors. Okay, like if we're gonna have groups here, we don't want to disrupt the neighbors. Well, it's great because there's only like one neighbor like really far left. Plenty of parking, plenty of bedroom space. We're gonna be adding, taking the front area right now, which is like a kind of an odd shaped room. We're going to close it off for the rest of the house and make its own like little casita. It has its own entrance. It'll have a living room, a bedroom, a small bedroom, and then its own bathroom. So that'll be totally separate, which we have found at Visilago people love. We have a casita up top and people love that that is like separate from the house and it's like its own little space. So we're going to do that. But yeah, we got some great ideas and I'm excited to step out of the box a little bit.
Okay, I have a question. So you mentioned that this property was a former Airbnb. Now,
Mhm.
you know that I'm always trying to get myself back to Scottsdale. And
Mhm.
I've noticed, and so I'm just going to use that as an example, but I have noticed recently that there are some houses on Zillow, especially after the Super Bowl, that were popping up for sale. Do
Yeah.
you like when it comes to buying a property that has already been an Airbnb? I think sometimes maybe people initially think like, well, clearly that was a bad investment, right? But you had mentioned that maybe it was just like managed poorly. If someone is, has a dream of, I don't know, having an Airbnb in Scottsdale or something, we'll just say, if someone has a dream of that and they find a house that, was an Airbnb before, what questions should they be asking themselves? Or should they be looking at that? Or should they just hire you to be the consultant to figure that out? I don't know. Like, what is it?
Sure. Hire me to be the consultant to figure all that out. No problem. But
Right.
yeah, I'd be happy to help with that. But I think the main thing is if they are selling is like, why are you selling it? Just ask, and sometimes owners will, sometimes they'll be transparent, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll say, hey, look, that ownership, that business model just wasn't for me, or we're going in a different direction and we want to go back to do this or do that, or want to move this into a different property, like a larger property, right? We've done that, right? We upgraded and got bigger houses and different properties. So, but I would think, looking into that listing and seeing like how did it perform? What are the reviews? What were people saying about the property? If it is a current Airbnb, that would be very helpful. Just get a little insight of, is this something you would be interested in? Does this work for you? And is this a good opportunity?
Because you could have like a great house, great location, but if it's not managed well, and the biggest thing we see, it's not maintained well,
Mhm.
because things start to break and then they're not keeping up with it. They say that they have a spa, but it doesn't work. So the guests show up, the spa's broken, they're disappointed, they write a bad review. And then it keeps kind of snowballing from there. Then they drop in the ratings on Airbnb because they don't have, a 4.8,
You gotta be
4.9.
4.9 or better. If you're not 4.9 or better, you're not getting page one.
Right. So
So
then you're not getting shown. So then you're not getting as many bookings. It's like this total snowball effect where if it just was ran properly and maintained and taken care of and good communications with your guests, I think not that it doesn't matter about the property, because obviously it does, but that is so much more important than anything, really, than anything.
Right. Okay. On that note, maintaining, like, you guys obviously do not live full time in Havasu, and you guys have 3 properties now there. And you don't live in Running Springs, and you have properties there. What does it look like? Give us the landscape of what does it take to have a team and make everything run on a week to week basis?
sure. So definitely having your team to rely on are your eyes and ears and your feet on the ground there on the daily, weekly basis. One point we always make is we're in Havasu at least once a month walking the properties. We will literally walk through the properties, check on basic supplies, check on amenities, make sure bathroom books aren't falling off the wall, etc. Like our
Air
cleaning crew looks to
filters.
that. Even just Adrian, like air filters, right? This house we just bought. We were there and we're walking. The inspector comes through. He's like, Matt, come here, look at this. I mean, he opens up the air filter and it's just nasty. And that tells you, like,
This thick
if
of dust,
if
and
they're
they,
not maintaining the
yeah,
air filters, they're not maintaining anything,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it was nasty. I've never seen something so thick and caked with dirt.
And they had just had guests leave, so it wasn't like it wasn't being utilized. They were just guests there. So think about like what they were breathing in. It just wasn't probably running efficiently. So things like that, just like in your normal home, they're so important and pretty easy to maintain. You just have to stay on top of it or have somebody, hey, I need you to check the filters every, in a short-term rental, it's going to be more often. every month or two or
But
whatever.
the one thing we do is we don't manage like overly remotely. By remotely, I'm not living in California and managing a property in Florida. Like that doesn't work for me. Like I've got a little bit more hands-on because we have a certain experience we want our guests to have. So we are there once a month, if not more, or even in Running Springs, the mountains, once a month, if not more. So we look for properties within a car drive. Something I hop in a car with 3 or 4 hours to get to spend some time on the ground. Now, it doesn't mean I won't at some future point in time, but to me, what gives me comfort is being local to the property. And we find, and I think this is very true, that if you take great care of your property, your guests will take great care of your property. There's always this fear, people like, oh, dude, you must just get, your house must just get thrashed. I'm like, no, it doesn't. We've had a story or two, and we could share that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like guests that come and go, they comment and compliment us on the house so much. They love it. They want to come back. They treat it like it's their home, right? So, but if the towel hook's falling off the wall, the toilet doesn't work, the spa's green, like people are like, well, they don't care. Why do I just come in and beat the heck out of this thing and go, right?
Right. Oh, that's so true.
It's so true. When you walk into a really nice place, you're going to be like, not on your best behavior, but want to like take good care of it. You don't want to be the one to break something. We understand things happen, but going back to that about finding people, that you can trust, that are reliable, that are hardworking and dedicated to us. It also, we're really good at showing them appreciation and taking good care of them. Matt has done a really good job with that. Just always, paying them a little extra sometimes, or doing special things for them. We try to make that a point because we could not do this business without them.
Correct. Our business doesn't exist without them.
Yeah.
And I learned that in my previous life with other vendors and suppliers we had. Like we don't exist without those providers. So they're our best customer, right? They always say, well, your customers, your best. Like, well, we wouldn't serve customers if we didn't have our vendors and suppliers. So we do work very hard at making sure that they're happy providing a service, whether it's financially, whether it's just taking care of them. We've even offered them stays at the properties in lieu just for extra services, that type of thing. And they enjoy it. They treat it like it's their home. They call it their home. They refer to it as their home.
Oh.
They get more upset about it if there's some dirty guests or whatever than we get. Like, oh, it's okay. We'll just clean up. They get in there and they take it very seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. I have 2 other things I want to ask you. One, you guys dropped a little nugget there where you had said you have had a few bad experiences before. In the how many years that you've had long-term and short-term rentals, is there any stories or experiences that kind of stick out? Because anytime you go to an Airbnb, like, people have stayed here before you. And you always kind of wonder, like, oh God, I wonder if this house could talk. I bet it has some stories. Do you have anything like that?
So I have 2 stories, and they're both in Havasu. And typically we go to Havasu as bigger groups, so people are coming out to have a good time. And there was a group of guests that checked in at Vista Lago, and they were nice guys, but they checked in. They wanted to get in early. They're already patting their foot outside of getting in, and they're all excited to get going. And I started getting alerts on my camera that somebody was by the pool equipment, and it says specifically in my rules, don't touch the pool equipment. When I look on the camera now, the fountains are on in the backyard, and their barbecue's cranking, and music's loud. And so, like, they said, hey, we don't have propane. And they said, not a problem. I will have my handyman come by and swap the propane tanks out. So he brings the propane tanks back, and he tells me, he said, Matt, they're setting up DJ equipment in the backyard. I'm like, oh, absolutely not. So I messaged him right away and said, hey, listen, you can have music. It's just got to be in the house. Close the house. You can bump it as loud as you want in there, but do not put that music outside, right? And sure enough, they moved it inside. And that's a small issue to deal with. They're very seldom I have to deal with the issues, and that's just like a little warm up for the next one, right?
But just so you know, like Airbnb, for running on that platform, they have a very strict no party policy. Like they absolutely will not tolerate it.
Right.
So they back us up on that. Like,
and they also do a very good job. Airbnb's platform, VRBO's platform, a lot of these platforms do a really good job of vetting the guests before they make it into you. So there's always this fear, and I get it. We had those same fears years ago, but as you get more experience, you get more confidence in it. We don't rent to direct bookings unless they've stayed at the property before. Like if say, Adrian, you stayed at our property before through Airbnb and we develop a relationship, like, hey, I'd like to rebook with you. Okay, great. You were a great guest. Here's the direct booking link. But we don't hand out our direct booking link because while it saves them fees and us some fees, it's not so advantageous for us by maybe a few percent.
It's risky.
It's more risky, right? But to the guest, it does reduce some of those fees, but now it's a big exposure and liability to us as hosts unless we know that those guests have stayed there before and provided a good, good stay. So, but let's jump into this one. This is probably our best story. And at the end of the day, it's not that wild, but it's got some good character. So I ended up getting a message from a neighbor. Lisa and I were out to dinner one night, and then the guest message, somebody messaged me through the Airbnb app. Somehow they found the clubhouse, the neighbor, because they're on Airbnb. They're like, hey, we just want to let you know they're having a party at your house and it's loud. And they were up till 2 in the morning with music and yada, yada, yada. And I said, hey, thanks for letting us know. We'll resolve that right away for you. So we immediately contacted the guests. And so we told them, hey, it's got to keep it chill tonight. Neighbor's already on edge. Just keep it down. Keep it inside. Everything will be cool. And it's like 8:30. All of a sudden, cops. I'm looking at the camera. I got an alert. Cops are rolling to the house. I'm like, what in the world is going on here? And I'm trying to have a nice dinner with Lisa. Like we're out, and I'm dealing with this. So this does happen, right? So the cops are there, and then I'm calling my contact, the guest, right away. I'm like, what is going on? He's like, man. He's like, listen, hey, everything's been fine. We had 2 girls. Got a little excited, probably drank a little too much. One's an unwanted house guest and threatened to fight the other one. Picked up a chair, threw it at the other girl, assaulted her. The chair goes flying past her, hits the wall, puts a hole in the wall, and then they hauled her away. She's trying to get away. She's jumping her car. She's got a DUI because she's driving down the street. So it just got a little wild. The cops came, settled it down. The rest is history. Like it all settles down the next day. But I saw on the cameras the guy comes back with a little Home Depot bag trying to patch the wall, and I already knew it was there. The cop even told me, he even told me there was a hole in the wall, but he was trying to fix it for us, and that was very nice of him. But I'm like, just leave it. I'll my drywall guy come in, professional, come in and patch it up. So
oh my gosh.
I ended up rolling out there, and because I was scheduled to go out there anyways for some maintenance, and I rolled in. I'm looking at the ceiling. There was a crack in the ceiling, and I'm like, what in the world? How did they get a crack in the ceiling right here? And if I look right in the corner, you can tell there was a stripper pole that was put in there where they pushed it to the ceiling, tightened it up, and then popped a hole in the ceiling. And
oh my God.
people freaked out, like, oh my gosh, like they make it sound like the whole house is burning down. I'm like, listen, guys, it was some cracked drywall. Like my drywall guy charged me $100 to come by, drywall repair, paint it. You couldn't even tell it's there anymore. You know what I mean? And these things happen. And the point about this is there's always a cost of doing business. I know when we were first starting, Lisa's like, oh my gosh, they moved the couch. I said, babe, it's just a cost of doing business. Things will happen. We know that. We've got to become more aware of that, right? But we've had hundreds and hundreds of stays, and that's one that's been an issue. Exactly. So as a percentage, it's a very it's less than 1% that there's been an issue with any of the stays that come our way. Majority of them are very good stays. I don't hear
such great stays. Yeah. I really feel like we have such great people that come to the house that want to have some family time or a small celebration or a summer getaway. And they all are very appreciative and great communicators. So like Matt said, it's such a small percentage, and it is part of the business.
But from an outside perspective looking in, and you guys just touched on this, but I feel like the reason why you've had such great experiences is because all the vetting you do long before that of what do we want the experience to be like? We want to make it so nice that they don't want to break anything. And just the way you treat it, I think you, and not even on like an energetic level of like what you're putting out there, you get back, but the quality that you're putting out there, that's the quality of people you're getting back. And one thing that I've just admired about what you guys have grown is these people aren't just coming and going and they're like never talking to you guys again. What you guys have done from like a marketing standpoint, like they can find you on social media, or they can join your email list, or they can find your website outside of Airbnb and still be a part of that experience. And I'd love for you guys to touch on a little bit of, you guys have a lot of repeat guests, or you guys have gotten clients from guests. How has that connection started? Does it start in the DMs while they're a guest, or like, how does that happen?
Yeah, so it starts in the DMs. Also, it starts when they book. When they book, we have a platform we use. Like we use technology. These are things we've learned. So we use technology. So if you were to book one of our properties, within 5 minutes of booking, you receive a note back from us, and it's very generic. It's like, hey, Matt and Lisa Hunter here, you're super hosts. We're excited to provide you this 5-star stay, at Vista Lago. get to know us a little bit more here. Here's a link to, you know, our website, meetthehunters.net. Like, so they start getting this connection to us. And it's just a very soft, you know, touch. Thank you. We look forward to hosting you. You know, you'll receive your check-in instructions 24 hours before the day you check in, right? And then they don't hear from us at all. And then 24 hours before they check in, they get a nice, it's a fairly long, you know, description and the check-in instructions. And some of it just kind of sets the tone, depending on the property. It talks about like this logo and how, so like the noise issues. We get that out of the way. Then we talk about all the fun stuff, how to access it, everything they need to know. It also has a welcome book that's digital. So they can click on it. They can see the welcome book digitally to where they see all the amenities. They see like our chef. We've had in-house chefs that come and cook there. Massage therapists, our referrals, our boat referrals, our local restaurants. So we really make it interactive. They can click in on it and see local restaurants and kind of our favorite choices and picks. So right there, they start getting excited about it.
And if anyone is listening to this and they're thinking, oh my God, this sounds like so much to put together. Like, how could I do all of this? I just want to say that this is what Matt and Lisa like do professionally. Like, you can hire them to help you with this process. And I think that that's what's really cool is you guys have done it and you've done it multiple times on your own. And now you help other people expedite that process. Like, what probably took you days to like, you know, learn how to put a bio for Airbnb together can take you like probably a couple hours for a client. So if anyone out there is like, you know, oh, I don't want to get into this because this sounds like a lot, we have a solution for you.
Yeah. So we make that connection though pretty quickly, Adrianne. And then one of our goals is repeat guests. So we always invite our guests, come stay with us again. You know, here's you know, whether it's a promo on your next stay or whatever it is, but we really want them to actually engage with us through the Airbnb platform. Reason being is that if they rebook with us on the Airbnb platform, Airbnb says, oh, this must be a very good house in demand. They're supporting the Airbnb platform. We're going to give them additional love on the Airbnb algorithm and boost our house. So it's important for us to continue to promote that. A lot of people are like, let's take it offline. I'm like, no, I want you to book through the platform. So that's where a lot of discussions happen, and we've had you know, guests rebook, which is a huge boost to our performance. But I was thinking Lisa maybe can speak to like just some of the comments we get with design, and whether it's the den or whether it's this log or the clubhouse, like how you've communicated with some of these individuals through Instagram. And
yeah, even in our guest book, there's funny comments like, "Can you come decorate my house now?" I see that a lot. And they're complimentary to the design, and which is really cool. But yeah, it's brought about clients because, you know, they've stayed maybe at one of the properties and they're like, I want my house like this, or I like the way that you did things. So it's led to opportunities, which is so cool because again, it's all about the experience that we've given them, that they are like, they want a piece of that maybe in their own home. So yeah, it's developed this, this love for myself for helping others, like I talked about before, to take their house and what they have, no matter what their budget is, and make their house feel more like a home. And a lot of times it's just like fresh eyes coming in on a space. Like even for me, I'm like, you know, I've been sitting in the same living room for 10 years now, and sometimes, oh, to have a friend come over, hey, what do you think if I did this, this, and this, and this? Like, it's always just about having different eyes on it. And so, yeah, I've just taken my experience from what I've done and then try to help others in their homes with what I've done. Yeah.
Would you have, like, if you could look back 10 years ago, would you have ever thought you guys would be doing something like this? Was this ever a part of like the bigger vision, or has this been kind of like a pleasant, crazy surprise?
Oh God.
oh yeah, it's a little bit of a crazy surprise. Like
Yeah.
if you'd asked me, like, would we be, you know, hosting and managing multiple properties? No, like we had a dream of like just investing in real estate and having multiple houses and doing this responsible thing. But then we saw a pathway for this opportunity with what we're doing now and these experiences that we've just are leaning into. We're excited about it. We're continuing to grow. You asked us earlier, like, what's 2024? Like, we're actually kind of pausing on buying. Like we're not going to buy this next year. Not that unless a deal comes our way that we're really excited about our house or a certain experience. But the one thing we really want to do is go back and look and maximize the properties we have to continue to drive those experiences to additionally, you know, fill occupancy. Adrianne, one of the things I'm excited about, yes, our new big property, but back at Vista Lago, we're actually going to create an additional listing off that. We're going to list the casita as a private, very romantic, little moody experience for guests that come in with just, 2 travelers, 2 guests, and we're going to present and have that available to rent during like non-peak season or off season, or just fill those gap dates that
Yes.
Vista's a big property, right? It's 16, 20 people. So it's not always everyday booked, right? But we're thinking, hey, there's probably a really good chance you get 2 or 4 travelers that are going to be traveling that this could cater to. We still have full access to the backyard, the hot tub, all those amazing. They just wouldn't have access to the main house. Now,
Right.
they would not be booked parallel because somebody like, well, that's weird. Like, I wouldn't want to be in the
Someone
backyard with some other group and somebody's up there watching me. So
Yeah.
it would still be an own booking, a private booking on the property. But now we can maximize that property rather than just one way to use it. Now we can use it, 2 different ways.
Right. Oh, that's so cool.
And then if we take that same business model to the new Rolling Hills property, we can create 3 different ways that property can be marketed. It'll have a private casita, it'll have a guest house, and then it'll have the main house and property. I mean, we could almost divide that up into 4 different listings if we really wanted to. Like, we can be
Wow.
very creative because now you can capture all these different markets and groups traveling rather than just because Airbnb, if we type in 16 people, it's going to show us homes that are 16 people or above. But if you type in 2 people or 4 people, it'll never show our large properties to somebody. So if you're traveling with a friend, you would never see Vista unless you were specifically looking for it. But if you're traveling and it's like the casita, you click in and look at it like, oh, this property is amazing. Oh my gosh, that's part of a larger property. Well, let me see the main property because shoot, I want to invite all my friends for a girls
Right.
trip. So it's another way to get screen time and create, additional opportunities. So it's called a
Oh,
parent-child listing. So that'll be new for us. So
that's
now
cool.
we can take 4 properties that we're going to have in our portfolio, and we're going to have now probably 10 different listings on Airbnb between the whole portfolio properties.
Oh my gosh, that just made me so excited for you guys. And I think from like a marketing and branding standpoint, you have like now these new unique opportunities to like create a whole scene around each one and a whole of like who this is perfect for us, like a perfect client. That's super exciting. Oh my gosh.
Oh, part with that too that you'll like because you stayed in the casita.
Yeah.
That is getting a home makeover. Like now the vibe has kind of changed. When I first designed it, I actually wanted it very like simple, classy. I wanted it to feel like a hotel room. Like that's exactly what I want. And it pretty much does. But now with this new idea, we're like, okay, it needs to be its own like special place. And so we're collaborating with a local designer in Havasu, and we're working together and like revamping the space. So, because like I said, I kind of
Sometimes we need some fresh eyes.
eyes.
And that's why
Yeah.
it's important to recognize that. Like, we're not perfect. We don't know everything. Like, I've consulted with other coaches, I've leveraged other mentors, and that's how I've learned. And
Yeah.
Lisa's done the same thing in her business, right? So it's good to get out of your comfort zone, ask for help. And that would be one of my biggest takeaways, even just from working with you. Like,
Yeah.
what are we good at and where do we need help?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I feel like we could talk all day about this, which I'm going to add all of the information of where you can find Matt and Lisa and all of their properties in the show notes. We'll probably have to have you guys on for another one in the new year. One, because I want to get all the updates on the new houses and the new properties. And I think too, it'd be just fun to dive into how you guys are developing these new properties within older ones. So that'll be really cool. But I think we'll clip the show right here. Do you guys want to pimp yourselves out? Let everyone know where they can find you, so they can follow you and tag you if they're listening to this episode.
Yeah, you can find me mainly on Instagram, LoveByLisa. It's kind of a hodgepodge of my kids, my friends, my family, and some design stuff. That's where you can find me. We also have our website, which is meetthehunters.net, where you can find us there, a little bit about us. You can find our properties.
And you can find me on Instagram at MattHunter27.
I love it. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here and talking to everyone. And I hope everyone got as much value out of it as I do. And I talk to you guys all the time. And this was great.
Thank you for having us on, Adrian. It's been a great experience.